The two semi-final ties, Simon, in terms of approaching the second legs, very much alive. Middlesbrough, Chelsea, and of course Liverpool and Fulham. Fulham still in there fighting, of course they are. But on Liverpool, if they come through this period of no Mo Salah, no Trent Alexander-Arnold, unscathed, do you think they could be on for the most special season yet under Klopp?
Possibly. I mean, I think that will also be determined by the performances of others. If Manchester City don't hit their straps, which I have no indication that they won't, then it can be an opportunity for Liverpool to be doing something quite significant. Obviously, the Champions League isn't in that mix, so that's not available to them. Oh, it is, isn't it? Of course they are. No, they're in the Europa League, aren't they?
Europa League, yeah, of course.
So that's not available to them.
Yeah.
But look, this Liverpool side, as has been described by the Liverpool acolytes, Souness and Danny Murphy, has so much about it and has so much goal power in it.
Yeah.
And so whilst Salah will be a loss to them, they have the ability to be able to overcome a loss by giving other players, in the same way that people suggested that once Harry Kane stepped out the door at Tottenham Hotspur, that was game up and game over. Liverpool have the ability to overcome sides like Fulham simply because they're a better team. And at this moment in time, they're in an irresistible vein of form. And they believe they can beat anybody, and that's the first start point in any conversation, in any sport or any business. And they've got a manager that is, to me, I think, the best manager, if not close to it, in world football. I know that the statistics will tell you that Guardiola is. I know that.
What, better than Pep?
Well, if he had the same resources as Pep, I think he might have achieved the same things. Now, the argument will be, what style of football do you like to watch? I like to watch Liverpool style of football more than I like to watch Manchester City's. And no, Manchester City fans, it's not because I have an agenda against your football club. I just like a more feral, dynamic brand of football rather than this, overwhelming destruction of other sides by passing them to almost near standstill. And the nature of Man City's football, whilst beautiful in the eye, isn't quite as exciting as a dynamic explosion Liverpool often produce, and that's just a personal choice. So I think Klopp is a brilliant manager. I think he's now back in the groove and back in most press conferences saying things that are sensible and not constantly indulging himself in what they do and don't have and how unfortunate it is for them. And I think he's an outstanding manager.
I mean, it's often said that Ferguson, one of his many qualities was how he could reinvent the Manchester United side after a bout of rebuilding.
Yeah.
The greatest managers, I think, are measured by their ability to do that, are they not? And Jurgen can do that. I mean, I'd never heard of Conor Bradley, and he comes. Kelleher, the goalkeeper, I knew he'd got a run out around this time. Gravenberch, I'd never heard of him, and he comes and he catches Alexis McAllister, we knew about, but he takes him from Brighton, slots him into his setup. Sure. Rebuild.
I mean, again, it's a metric. It's one of the metrics.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about rebuilding from scratch. In days gone past, Liverpool took Mark Lawrenson from Brighton. It's not an unfamiliar territory to take club players from lesser clubs and put them into a space where they can play with better players and enhance their own abilities. I think that it's quite a decent thing to be able to achieve, obviously, but it's not. If Liverpool, when we talk about rebuilding Man United, they had the embarrassment of riches of the economic power to be able to do precisely what they wanted for most of the noughties and the late 90s.
Yeah.
Liverpool's is slightly different. Whilst they have an economic precedence over other football clubs, they don't have quite the resources that Manchester United have, Manchester City have. They, more often than not, have to sell to balance their books, to be able to get the income, to be able to generate the returns that they need to have to buy the players that they want. So I think there's an element of difference about this thought process about what Ferguson did. When Ferguson decided Yapstam was gone, or David Beckham was gone, or someone had stepped or run past their sell-by date, or he needed to get rid of Paul McGrath or Norman Whiteside at the beginning, all these other players, it's because he had the ability to be able to flex and build from the basis of having enormous financial resources. Now, Liverpool are no slobs.
No.
They're not chopped liver as far as finances are concerned. But I think that what he's done is he's addressed the problem that everyone knew that was coming, or saw that was coming, except Souness last year, which was the loss of certain players in the middle of the park created a lack of energy in Liverpool that they didn't replace for a period of time. And now he's got the balance back right.
Sure.
And he's got firepower.
This was Liverpool who were fifth last season. And now we're talking about them potentially having their best season ever.
But there's also this analysis and that gets trotted out with Klopp about this rock and roll football, this heavy metal football that saw itself almost implode at Dortmund, where teams run out of energy and they have to replenish and refresh. And because there is a level of intensity that Klopp demands and expects from his players in the manner in which he plays, it does mean that he's got to think very strategically about when players are coming to the end of their cycles and being able to recycle them to be able to build a great side. And you see these, they didn't defend their title very well, did they? When they won their title, they defended it poorly.
That's right.
And then they had a great season 2 years ago where they looked like they were going for everything. And then this last season gone past, they had a drop-off again. Now, you can look at that and you can say it's a coincidence, or you can say it's a necessity of Klopp having to think about what he's doing. And who am I to tell Klopp? He knows what he's doing. But I think that it's one of the component parts. It's not the only part. It's a component part of what makes a great manager is the ability to rebuild. But when we talk about rebuild, it's not a decaying building that's fallen to the floor.
No.
These are buildings
the
that are pretty
foundations
solid.
are there. Yeah, absolutely right. Fulham, we haven't forgotten about you. Still very much in the tie, as we stress, just as Middlesbrough, of course they are, in the tie with Chelsea, having beaten Chelsea at the Riverside 1-0 the other night. Who's to say it's not a Middlesbrough Fulham final? Having said that, Liverpool look very much in the mood to do something not just in this competition but in others as well.
Jim White and Simon Jordon, Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.